It's time to do a setup woes video. My intention is to do Summer Storm, the Battle of Gettysburg. The reason I picked this game up was, I mean, look, beautiful Barber map, whatever. This is actually the only game he's designed. And it's not good to speak ill of the dead, but he passed a couple of years back. But it's pretty clear why. In a lot of ways, he tried to make the kind of game that I would try to make, which is just, you know, let's just throw everything in and try to put everything together in so many interesting ways. And unlike me, he had enough, you know, connections, but also more importantly, stick-it-to-itness to try to get something that apparently worked. What's exciting about this one, and this is not the intro, this is just a setup woes, because we're going to try to figure out how to do it. But what's exciting about this one is it's a double-blind operational map, okay? And then with a tactical battlefield for all of Gettysburg. I read the rules. The tactical rules make sense to me. The operational rules, not quite so much. I feel like the tactical rules are innovative. But where this game really stands out and where I really wanted to play it, as opposed to, you know, and why I picked it up, as opposed to, like, you know, the things I already love, stuff like CWB's Thunder at the Crossroads, Terrible Swift Sword over there. I did the LOB one, what the hell is it? Last Chance for Victory. Yeah. I have 3 dog. I have the old Avalon Hill Gettysburg kicking around somewhere here, which I don't know if I've ever actually played. I may be lacking rules for it, which may be the issue. But anyhow, what was so exciting about this one was the concept of being able to maneuver on this much larger scale. This little square is an inset that represents the map here. The hexes on this are presented as mega hexes over on the main board. So you can translate, so you can do operational movement actually on this board and be invisible to the opponent. And because it's double blind, you're going to be doing call outs and stuff like that as to where things are. Okay. Some of that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Again, the tactical game is innovative, and I would have liked to have played around with it a little bit. But I started looking at, there was a training scenario, okay? The Battle of Nellie's Nipple, completely imaginary thing. But I just didn't like the way it looked. It looked really horrible, and you're like writing down secret entries and stuff like that, and I'm like, geez, that's a lot to do for a training scenario. Just give me something where I throw some pieces on the board and get to fiddle with the system. All right, fine, I can handle it, whatever. Screw it, I'll just go to the main game. Because I didn't want to deal with this kind of, you set up your own troops however the hell you like, you know, without knowing how the system works. That feels like absolutely the wrong kind of thing to face me with, right? If I'm going to have to deal with that, I might as well deal with the whole show. So that's what I went to. So I start trying to figure out how to set it up. And first of all, you have some setup here. Okay. You know, Lee goes on 2309. Now, one of the first problems that you face is these hexes are too small for the counters. I think they're fine over here. These guys are fine sized. But when you're playing with these, they just sort of spill over the hexes, and in some cases, in fact, in many cases, you're going to have units kind of crammed together. Now, the setup here, these units are all crammed together. It's hard to get, you know, to get them adjacent to each other properly when the map is too small for them. And okay, we'll deal with that, right? You know. So yeah, we've got like locations here. Now we have these parenthesized numbers which have special roles. Now in this case it's that Pickett can't move. He has to guard the supply line to begin with until a certain point. Some of these though are things like, hey, here's D.H. Hill, as per special rules. Well, D.H. Hill is a completely optional unit. This is a pretty major option too. It's let's see if they put it. They've got it dealt over here. You're talking about basically stripping the troops out of Richmond in North Carolina. It wasn't going to happen. Okay. These are the kind of options that showed up in. Actually, Barber took them from Powell's designs, like Thunder at the Crossroads, where they were throwing in, you know, let's throw everything but the kitchen sink in. Nah, let's throw the kitchen sink in too. For kind of let's make this more interesting. Okay, whatever. I can live with that. And I can get all these units in place. The problem is knowing how to put these on the board. You have to fall back. It's not something simple. It's not like this unit goes here or whatever. How you represent the units requires you understand this section here, the unit representation. So an infantry division on the map is going to be 3 counters. The infantry leader, 1 random infantry unit, and the infantry divisional supply wagon. Okay. I can cope with that. It's a little bit more complicated because they say Confederate divisional counters are assumed to include any normally attached artillery units. Well, they have artillery attached to the division, fine. Union divisional columns have a proportional number of their core artillery. But there's a problem here in that there's core artillery for the Confederates, and there's no statement of where that goes. Okay, so that's a bit of a problem. Maybe it goes proportional just like the Union artillery does. It's not discussed anywhere. To allow for realistic use, cavalry divisions and independent brigades are represented by their officer and a number of cav units equal to the divisional DMF. The DMF can be found over here. I think it's this number here. This is the Army. DMF stands for Divisional Morale Factor. I don't quite understand how that works. Like I said, I've read the tactical rules. That's part of them. And when we go over them again, I think it'll sink in. It's basically, I don't know. It's a very strange system. Let's just put it that way. But okay. Now, units that have an asterisk are in this bag. These are the optional stuff. So like D.H. Hill is here. You'll see we've got this wonderful Jackson as a zombie one, which was one of the reasons I had to have the game, right? A lot of Gettysburg games have a Jackson lives. Well, this one does too. Okay. So that's one problem, but I'm okay. I can work my way around that. I can figure out that the artillery goes there. But then we come to the next problem that I had, which was as I was looking through options. So, yeah, here's one of the things with the cavalry. Let's see where we have it. To allow for realistic use, horse artillery units assigned to a particular division are included and moved with the divisional's officer. Confederate horse artillery units are attached as shown by the color coding on the counters. Okay, so this is a problem. First of all, there's all kind of cav that isn't accounted for and doesn't have an asterisk on the counter. Okay. This is the artillery that they're talking about. But there's things like Chambliss here. These Imboden and Jenkins, Jones, those are all Robertson. Those are all accounted for. And again, you don't have all the pieces on the board when you're moving them on here, but those are the excess pieces for that unit. What's not clear to me, though, is if I look at like Robertson, he has this unit. Okay, which artillery is Robertson? Is it this one with a white dot? Well, why is that different from Jones, which also has white crossed swords? So all the crossed swords for the artillery are gold, but there's like a color dot on them. I don't know. I can make shit up. I can say, hey, there's an artillery, you know. So the white dot goes with white units, and I split it up as I like. The blue dot goes with a blue unit. I've got this White's Company, which is completely not noted anywhere. And then I have Chambliss and Fitzlee, neither of which have leaders. Who are they assigned to? I don't know. They're their own color. Okay? Maybe they're the stuff that's with Stuart. Not clear, but there is special rules for Stuart here. Stuart's location on the board, la la la. They don't actually tell you what Stuart has. That's interesting. Now I look over here and I see Stuart, and he has a big force. He also has with Jenkins, if Jenkins is attached to him, I guess, but Jenkins isn't attached to him, so I don't know why that's there. I don't see an option for that particularly. Maybe it's over here in the Confederate. Here, Corson Jenkins Brigade, Deering Artillery. These were part of Pickett's division. Yeah, that's not it. Those are extra units under Pickett, which probably I have to look for and make sure I don't have a star in there. Ransom isn't there. Buckner's not there. I got nothing. Okay? I got nothing about that. And then as I was flipping through looking for other things, I see Hampton in the 2nd Cavalry Division. Well, I have Hampton here. He has his own little, what appears to be his own little unit. And the way this is described, no asterisks on these, by the way. These are not like asterisks as if they were a unit that doesn't belong. While Stuart's ride seemed like a good idea, he probably should have covered his options and left his second-in-command, Wade Hampton, in charge of the 2 brigades that remained in the valley. Well, I've got 2 brigades in the valley here, okay? I've got Jenkins here, and I've got Imboden back here. Now, Imboden's a little weird because I'm not sure he's actually on the map yet. He's supposed to be set up in that hex, but I'm not sure he really is. That may be his entry hex, and that would be very different from everything else. Other people have their entry hex, and I've got them over here. Okay. And that's like another couple brigades, right? That's Jones and Robertson here, right? Okay, so now we're at 4 brigades back here, I guess. I don't know. So what do we have here? He had reservations about Robertson's abilities. Is Robertson on the board? No, Robertson's not one of the ones here. Robertson's back here. So, you know, maybe Robertson and Jones are the 2 that were left behind, and Imboden and Jenkins are independent? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, at the cost of 15 victory points, I have no idea how much a victory point is worth, right? Like, they try to balance the game using victory points. This game is going to be based on trying to wipe out the enemy army. There's no terrain considerations in terms of victory points or anything like that, which makes sense, except I'm not sure that there's any real reason to go fight at Gettysburg, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've got this whole map to walk around on, but combat outside of the Gettysburg map would really suck. The operational rules for combat look shitty, comparatively. And there's no goal, right? Like, there's nothing, I'm not getting to Harrisburg or anything like that. By the way, there's another scenario that, like, is if Lee gets by and there's a different fight somewhere else, which looks even more suspect. I really actually don't know if I'm going to be able to play this thing. It's really funny. Like, yeah, you read some of the review stuff, and some of it's like, wow, this game's rules are a mess, you know? And I'm like, I can work my way through messy rules. Okay. You know, I've dealt with stuff before. Yeah, it's worse than that. When the setup is impossible, and I found some errata, it doesn't cover the operational setup at all. It may be that the tactical setup's fine. It may be that nobody's ever fucking played the operational game. Like, the people, there's a guy who kind of made a primer on the rules, and he's like, yeah, I've only played the tactical game. Like, I didn't buy this for the tactical game. I bought this for the interaction, right? You know, I've got perfectly good Gettysburg games. I'm really happy with Thunder at the Crossroads, and the LOB version at the regimental scale was also very interesting. It's kind of funny. Barbara wrote in this that he views his system as a streamlined, simpler version of the CWB in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's not. It's far, far more complicated. But anyway, like, less detail in terms of, like, the combat is not going to be, you know, fire combat or anything like that. You know, taking it to a level that, like, so I know some people kind of gripe about CWB as being, like, maybe too much like a regimental game with its fire combat and everything, but actually it's his order system that he says is more streamlined. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. The written orders are really, really easy to deal with. This thing is not. This thing is not intuitive in the same sort of way. And it's meant to kind of simulate written orders and make it simpler. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm tempted to throw this out and use written orders instead, but there's some cool things about this that are outside of that I do want to take a look at. But anyway, what I'm looking at here, let's see, this Hampton thing, right? Use the 2 cav line on the Army status sheet. Imbiden's independent brigade may also be added once it arrives. Imbiden's not the one you add. You add, you had Jenkins here. Okay. Okay. In the op game, Hampton's 2nd Cav Division arrives in exactly the same manner as Jones and Robertson. I think he replaces them, except that you start rolling for it. In the TAC game, starting here, you do this. I think that I can just throw Hampton out. And I bet you, wherever he is, Stewart is over here. I bet you Hampton's under him. Yeah, Hampton's his replacement. So I think I can just pick these guys up and assume that they are just an asterisk force. That still leaves me with a problem. I've got a bunch of cav that I don't know where they go and who they're assigned to. So I guess they're Stewart. I guess everything that I can't evaluate, Fitzlee, Chambliss, White's company? Yeah, is it? I don't know. I really don't know. Is meant to be that. So that would be then the red dotted artillery would be with these guys. The blue dotted artillery would be here. And I would kind of throw this in with someone. I don't know who. It's not clear. There's no indication, right? These are all Virginia Cav, both Imbiton and and Jenkins, and they're separate units. Does this tell me anything? Not really. It's not like the number of strength points in the unit, I think. I don't know. But yeah, I think Hampton can just disappear. Now this is problematic because Hampton's red, and who are these guys? And Jones is white, and Robertson is white. So they don't feel like they're the same thing. The red here feels like it's the Chambliss Fitz-Lee stuff, but it's not, it's Hampton. I don't know. Maybe I'll look at the numbers and see if I can figure something out based on, hey, how many strength points does he have? Does that align with this to any degree? Does that mean anything? Okay. Well, I decided, fine, I can't do anything with the Confederates. I can't quite figure them out, but we'll get to that. And I get to the Union setup, and I start working my way through that. I don't get as far. I get as far as General Meade and the AOP Artillery Reserve. Okay. I don't really have like a wagon for it, but that's okay. And then I get to the Union supply wagons, which should be for the Artillery Reserve, and I can't find them. They don't seem to exist. Now, the Confederates have their wagons with these little markers. These guys may or may not show up in the game, right? If they don't, like, they can get intercepted and the Confederates miss out on their artillery. I don't have any counters that I can find in here for the Union artillery wagons. I've looked through them. And then I also have, again, tons of, optional counters in play that I guess oh, wait, no, these are command markers. These are used to activate your orders, basically. So yeah, I don't have any Union artillery wagons. I don't know how many there are supposed to be. And I'm kind of at a loss as to what to do about that. I think I'll put this here and think about it some more. But yeah, I mean, I've got like their actual artillery. I've got Meade on the board. I've got all kinds of corps that I know I can put into place, but I don't know how to put some of the other stuff. There's also commanders who aren't really assigned anywhere. Like, again, they probably show up fine in the tactical rules, but let's take a look at some of these. Trimble's something special. But I've got Alexander and Pendleton. Harrison here is something special as well. Who are artillery commanders for the Confederates, who there are rules for them, but I don't find out where they're assigned. Now, I assume they're in the column of the Army artillery, but I'm actually not sure about that because I think Alexander's part of First Corps or something along those lines. I just fucking, like, the setup rules, I can understand where certain parts of the actual rule book get kind of difficult to cope with and maybe aren't as clear as other places, but the setup kind of has to be right. And the fact that there's no errata available for the operational setup is just astounding to me. Like, to me, it just means that nobody's played the operational game, I think. There's no discussion about it. The only discussion there are is people asking, did you try the operational game? No, I've stuck to the tactical game. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's like, holy shit, man. Am I the only person idiotic enough to say, yeah, I can't cope with the training scenario. I think I'll try the entire thing as one. But again, it's why the game was made, as far as I'm concerned. It is the purpose of this game, is because of that. Anyway, we'll see what comes of this. Just to hit another situation for the Union forces, as I've continued. I thought I was going to go downstairs and rest or whatever, because I'm tired as shit. I basically didn't get any sleep, which might have been the problem, but it doesn't appear to be. I am not able to find answers to these things. I looked at Sickles here, 3rd Corps. He's over here, and he's got 2 divisions attached to him. Fine. I've got them apportioned. The artillery will be split between those. Again, I don't know if I'm supposed to do that now or if I just kind of assign it as needed, you know. But the Corps probably will be moving together. However, this particular Corps has a couple of sharpshooter units assigned to it. Again, do I just put one with each division? That's what I'm kind of guessing, but, you know, it's not spelled out anywhere that I'm aware of. Of course, the way that the artillery is set up and whatnot is not covered in the setup. It's covered back in the, you know, representation of units. Again, the operational rules are just so much weaker than the tactical, and it seems like people have struggled with the tactical rules, but I don't know. At least they seem to make sense to me. Now, we saw in Banish All Their Fears over there that I can read a set of rules, think that they kind of make sense to me. These feel like they kind of make sense to me, but that there's a lot of complexity to them that I'm going to kind of have to see in operation for it to actually work. But I think a lot of that is going to come through as I'm fiddling around on the operational map using commands. However, and this is one of the things, that training scenario, it doesn't have certain kind of command points that are some of the stuff that I feel like, yeah, that's going to be kind of hard for me to deal with. Some of it is, yeah, some of it's just, you know, the actual combat mechanism for units and whatnot. But I feel like, look, that's just going to work itself out, right? Like, I'm going to be able to do that. It's basically an odds comparison where everything converts to a DRM, and you end up doing hits using these cohesion hit markers, and I kind of understand how they work in a very broad sort of sense, right? Although there's a shitload of charts and tables in this one. Oh, so here we have, hold on, Union Order of Appearance. But this is, yeah, starting in July 1st. So this is for the tactical game, all right? And it, I don't know. Like, what do I have here? Tidball A. It's Tidball. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, whoa, who is that? Let me look on the let me look on here, see what Tidball is. He's not a commander. I don't know. I just get the feeling that, like, overall the game has so many problems going into it. But yeah, I mean, we got 3 sheets of, and you know, look, Victory Games came out with foldouts that had as much information. 3 sheets, the paper. Oh man, Clash of Arms did such great, you know, this is like not just stock, but it's textured. That's the cool stuff here. But, you know, you've got the sequence of play, all the information here, costs for the command points that you'd spend, combat rolls are here, other combat-ish rules, like firing. What changes the morale levels of the different units, the terrain effects. It doesn't feel like, it feels like it's the material that I need to be able to understand the game. This chart I'm a little less certain of. You mark off morale hits, essentially, with that over on here. And those are recoverable outside, I think, of the cohesion hits, although there's probably a relationship between them. But man, and what the fuck is this? If Stuart has not been located, then Huey's brigade must be detached. Who the fuck's Huey? I guess it's part of Greg. Yeah, okay, fine. Merritt's Cav Brigade has an asterisk next to it. I guess it's not in the game. It doesn't have a number, but asterisks usually mean it's an optional unit. I seem to remember Merritt showing up in Terrible Swift Sword. So I'm a little confused about that. Let's look here. He doesn't have an asterisk over here, although Buford looks like he does and Greg looks like he does. Well, that's just peachy. They sure the hell are there. There's Huey. I don't know. Merritt might be part of Buford. That might be. And Huey might be part of Greg. But again, why are the asterisks? Good Lord. Yeah, here, mark off all the morale boxes above the shaken line on each division's morale track. I don't know which, that's going to be this side. And then for each division, add the command ratings of the division's corps and division leaders, subtract the roll of 1 die, and add or subtract the result from the division's morale. Add the command ratings of the division's corps and division leaders, subtract the roll of 1 die. And then add or subtract. Like, which one? You know, I mean, I've got a number here, right? It's positive for command rating, negative for the roll of a die. If I add that number and the roll of the die is negative, that makes sense. If I add or subtract, I'm guessing what they mean, and again, this is horrible, but I'm guessing what's meant is by the add or subtract, if it's negative, I subtract it. Like, I don't subtract the negative, I add the negative, but that's effectively subtraction, therefore, let's use really bad mathematical terminology there. All right, well, I'm going to continue on. I'm hoping that I can come up, like, I think I can come up with some made-up solution for this shit. And again, by balancing out numbers, maybe I can come up with some sort of answer as to, you know, where some of the lost units are. But on the other side, I've also got the I don't know what the hell to do for the Army supply wagons for the Union. They just aren't in existence. Have a little bit more fun here. Here I have the part of 5th Corps here under Crawford. And all the units under Crawford have this mark on them. Now, that's where there's an asterisk on units that have ended up in the bag. However, I also found an Irish unit which I think has a harp there. So I'm assuming this has something to do with like, that was like the lightning division or something like that. I have no fucking clue. But again, unexplained symbology showing up on the counters. You know, look, I understand it's a work of love meant for people who really know the history, but let me know when you're putting weird shit on the counters. Don't just throw it on there. I think I figured out the Merritt Huey situation along with these. I think what it is Beaufort, Merritt is a brigade under Beaufort. It's not an optional unit, but he starts here, whereas Beaufort starts up here. And if I think about what I remember about TSS, I remember Beaufort being on the map real early, and he gets reinforcements, probably Merritt showing up. So what you've got here is Beaufort has a strength of, has a divisional factor of 2 without Merritt and 3 with, and likewise Gregg has a 2 without Huey. Now at this point Huey is still with Gregg over here, but I've got him over here on the turn record track as a reminder of when we pull him in. Now, unfortunately, he's the same color as some of the Confederate units, which feels a little fucking weird to me. But, yeah. Now, I think that there are some picket units that I saw somewhere as possibly being, so what did I see here? Corson Jenkins brigades, 2/1 plus During C1 artillery. These were part of pickets but had been retained north of Richmond. If no other variants are purchased, they take over for picket guarding the trains. I think I get them. And that's maybe a big deal, but I thought Pickett gets replaced by Imboden, who is not an option. So I don't know what's going on. Let's look at the Pickett rules here. Pickett's Division 1 must stay within 1 hex of Chambersburg until Imboden moves adjacent to him and relieves him. If Ransom's division is being used, it may free him by moving next to this. Ransom is then restricted as Pickett until relieved by Imboden. And I don't think there's any option on Imboden. He's just here. He's got a 6. Remains encamped until 6 daylight game turns after Lee spends or early on July 1st. His arrival in 2308 releases Pickett Ransom C4 above. It seems to me that Pickett can be released earlier than you would think. And I don't know what's up with that. I know that like in the TSS situation, Imboden makes it on the map. I don't know when, but it sounds like he shouldn't in this. So I don't know what's going on and what the intention is there with that. I have resolved everything except what the fuck's up with the Confederate cavalry, what's up with the excess leaders who, you know, I can kind of fake and figure out, you know, the guys with the artillery are with the artillery somehow, if I can remember to put them on, and where the hell is the Union supply wagon? Yep. Those is the things. There's also, if we look under Stuart, there's the captured wagon trade, those damn wagons. He's got a pile of wagons. These are represented by one of the Confederate Army supply wagons placed adjacent to Stuart when he shows up. Okay. I got 3 of them here. I'm only allowed, I don't know. And that wagon is worth 20 victory points. And again, it's like, there's all these like random victory points that you get in this scenario. Some of them are like, oh, gosh, if you start the June 30th scenario, well, you just march into Gettysburg. I don't know why. I don't know why you'd go to Gettysburg. Why bother? Why fight this battle? At least like the ones that have terrain objectives, I have a reason to be in the terrain objective here. I just have to destroy the enemy army. Well, is parking in good terrain going to do that? No. No. You got to convince me, like, I don't see any reason why either side is going to attack the other unless the other is in a bad position, right? Like, think about that. There's no motivation to fight this battle. Like, unless you catch the other guy off guard and can schwack him. I see absolutely no real reason why, say, the Confederates would continually attack Cemetery Hill. I just don't see it. If casualties are the net effect, and we'll get into this in a bit. So the Cav have some restrictions. I don't know what they are. For each full daylight game turn in which an infantry division spends in a camp formation with its DAC face down in the R&R orders box and its divisional morale at its maximum possible, it generates a victory point. Imboden's and Jenkins Cavalry Brigade each generate 3 victory points per turn. Okay? Somewhere I saw notes that this generates something like 12 victory points per turn or something like that. I don't know. It's per division, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of divisions. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a huge amount of victory points. And that, like, it's an amount that's insurmountable in the game. So, that's each full daylight turn. So if you don't, like if you just encamp and don't go into the battlefield, I think you win the game. And then on the Union, I just don't think that like there was any real playtesting of the operational game at all. With the exception of the 5th Corps and all Cav and artillery reserve units, all Union divisions start the scenario with their divisional morale at or near shaken point. I have to mark those off with that die roll thing. That's a much more reasonable thing. I don't want to fight. I'm exhausted from my march here. I have no idea what to do. Like, I could fish out, there's 2 corps, each have 1 supply wagon. I could just call those the Union supply wagon. There's 2 corps that are optional units for the Union. Otherwise, I guess I'll paw through the units and look again and again and again. I've looked several times through the one place where they can be, which is here. I do not see any Union supply wagons. I do not see them, Sam I am. Well, another fruitless search proves absolutely useless, but I forgot, I do have 3 blank counters here. I don't know how many I'm supposed to have, but the Confederates have 3. I figure probably the Union has 3 as well. Divisional supply wagons arrive with the division's leader, the actual rules, the Army supply wagon, and artillery reserve wagons. Yeah, there is no artillery reserve wagon. That's what's missing. They're shown on map by a single wagon counter to represent the whole train. When they arrive on the tactical map, the Union player deploys all 3 wagon units. The Confederates only deploy 2. The third one is the Stuart one. So I will put that over with Stuart. So yeah, I should have 3 of those somewhere. Did it tell me that I'm supposed to set them up somewhere? It does. 5124. Okay. Well, I'll clip those 3 counters, maybe even draw a little wagon on them. I don't know. But then the other thing is what to do with the Cav here. I don't know the answer. Like, I tried counting Hampton. He has more boxes than he has strength points in his units. I tried counting other units. I have no idea. I'm gonna just fake something. Now, Robertson and Jones are on the board. I think I'll give White's company to these blue things along with the artillery that's blue. I'll give the white artillery over here to these, because they probably have artillery with me. And I'll say Fitz-Lee and this are Beckham, and then I'll just dump Hampton, who there's no markings on him, but I think he replaces some units. Now, the way he's discussed, he would replace Jones, who has 10, and Robertson. Jones and Robertson. Let's look for them. Do I have more of them? I don't honestly know. There's a Robertson. So I was at like 15 plus so that would be 25, somewhere around 30. And here I'm at like 28. That sounds about close. I don't know. Like, let me just look at these again. 5, 10, 15 for those 2. And ignore the artillery. It's at 15, 25, 30, 34 versus 28. Somehow putting Robertson in place of those 2 commanders would lose me a few strength points. I don't know. But there's nothing about Hampton showing up otherwise. I can also look at these. So these are listed as Hampton. This might help me. So let's look. Jones is Virginia. This is Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, North Carolina. Maybe Hampton just comes in with Stuart with this big force. Here's 1 North Carolina, Robertson A, and it's a much worse unit. I just don't know. Maybe Hampton's supposed to come in with Stuart with all these forces. Maybe he's not. It's all a mystery. He's got an asterisk here. The only place he's discussed is Hampton in the 2nd Cavalry Division. He'd be in charge of the 2 brigades that remained in the valley. Yeah, I think he just doesn't show up otherwise. Because he is on the back of Stuart. Now, maybe something is not supposed to be there that would show up. Like, maybe he's supposed to drain some troops out of what Stuart would otherwise get or something. But I'm just going to remove him. Because as far as I can tell, he's not supposed to be in the game, but it's just fucking weird. That's all I have to say. There's like no way to align stuff. Did I put those artillery units on the board? I did not. Hold on. Oh, I found the units, and it's, you know, for out of Pickett's units that are supposed to be kind of delayed or whatever. It is a big part of his force, maybe a third of his force or whatever. Now, again, my memory is Pickett came in with a fairly large unit. Now, it's 2 brigades and the artillery. The artillery we can ignore. But the brigades in this game, instead of counter, like a single counter for a brigade with possible line extensions and all that, what this game has chosen to do is to basically say a counter is a particular sized force of men. And that its quality is represented by the strength points and the morale value, the left and right numbers on there. Which means that, like, the fact that there's a couple of brigades that are not present actually can take quite a few counters out. Now, I've got another problem, though. The Union Standard DE 3/1. These 2 huge regiments from Stanard's Vermont spent the battle guarding some of the core wagons in Maryland. Free and ops game. Well, I'm playing the operational game. I'm not in Maryland. Should I be bringing them in or not? I don't know. Sickle, part of Crawford's Penna Reserve Division. Sickles' brigade was retained in the Washington defenses while the rest of the division moved north. I should definitely pull that out. And so now I have to hunt through the pieces and look for things with asterisks, basically. Guess I'm going to do that. I'll tell you, though, I could do with a lot less optional pieces and a lot more attention to the stuff that was actually here and making sure that they had counters and that they have reasonable explanations of how to place those counters. Why don't I look at the order of appearance here? Maybe that'll tell me something, right? Because I'm looking for Stuart. Hampton, A, B, and C comes in with Stuart over here. Fitz-Lee comes in. Oh, what happened to Fitz-Lee? Fuck me. God damn it. Did I throw Fitz-Lee in too? Oh, bother. No, Fitz-Lee is nowhere. Yeah, Beckham here. Oh, there's some Fitz-Lee. I've got him under the thing. So yeah, I think Hampton is supposed to... I think Hampton's supposed to actually come in with Stuart. So I will fish those counters back out and put them in here. Absolutely, like, unclear as to what comes in with Stuart, but it is actually spelled out here in the historical tactical game scenario. There's nothing where it tells you what Stuart stuff comes in. If I pay attention to this, Hampton A, B, and C come in, but not D in the historical thing. Now, I don't know. I also don't think Hampton himself is supposed to show up. But I could use him as a replacement. Is he a 3? Yeah, he's a 3 on either one. For Stuart. I think maybe Hampton would be left behind without his troops. His troops would be with Stuart. Just in command of these units is what I'm guessing, although that's in charge of 2 divisions, and what does that mean? I don't know. Hampton's got an asterisk here. What does that mean? I don't know. Right? He has no, this is the 2/C. It's not. But on the other hand, I think he's just part of Stuart in this case. Well, what is the 2/C then? I don't know. Is it Jenkins? What the hell is it? Whatever's over here. Jones and Robertson, right? Yeah. Jones and Robertson. So Jones and Robertson would add up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. This is more than 27. I just don't fucking know. You know? Now, what does that mean? Again, these aren't strength points, right? These aren't those points on the units. They may mean all kinds of different things. But it seems obvious to me that Hampton's troops are supposed to show up with Stuart, and that the 2C is just this command that maybe is a better morale unit if it's under him instead of split between those other 2 commanders. But do they go away in that case? I don't know. Not explained, like so much here. And what were we doing? We were going to look up for these and try to find if we could fish out more units and get rid of them. And I don't feel like these 2 huge regiments that didn't make it into the area that were in Maryland should come in for free. The annoying thing is those units may or may not be in this stack. It's possible it's the one unit I randomly selected, so I've got to check to see that. Now, I see standard, no asterisk. But I see standard D has an asterisk. Yes. Okay. So we're going to take D and E out, but not all of standard. Okay. And then that's 3-1, 2/6. What the hell does that mean? I don't know. Unfortunately, some of the free and ops game, I don't want to withdraw from the game. So for example, Huey and Robertson DH Artillery, Huey shows up on the Baltimore Pike at 9 a.m., but may not be purchased. If Beaufort stays on or returns to the field, this brigade starts on board. It's already there, right? And it has special rules that it has to undertake, so I don't want to get rid of that. Taft A Artillery Reserve, guarding army trains in Westminster. Westminster is what's discussed here. I don't know if Westminster's on the board. But again, yeah, it's down here. So I don't want to fuck with that. So I'm actually considering bringing the Doubleday units back in, but they don't make as much sense to me. Or not the yeah the standard units from Doubleday. You know, I'm not in Maryland, and why should I get those free? I don't think there's any Maryland here on this board. I'm in Pennsylvania, right? I don't think there's any Maryland on this board, but I don't know for sure. It just doesn't make sense, does it? Do we have a picture of the entire campaign area or anything like that? Because again, it's like, yeah, if they never made it on the operational map, I don't want them to be in my game. Whether they could have, whether the game decides that they're free or not, I have no clue. You know, I don't want to add them, but I'm looking through this shit and I'm like, well, how do I differentiate between these? Okay, this one's fine. French, part of Harper's Ferry Garrison, I'm not sending that. Nagley, I'm not sending that. Buford's division, 1 Cav, Tidball, pulled out of the battle in the morning. Buford could have recalled them. I don't think there's a variant there. Like that's probably a, it's not, it has to leave the field or something. I don't fucking know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these 4 units and say that's the best I can do. And I think we're set up. I don't think I'm going to start hitting the rules today in terms of explaining them, but I think we're set up for the game. And you notice, nothing on the Gettysburg map. The Union positioned far to the south. They have to do some sort of recovery. The Confederates largely to the north, but kind of spread out quite a bit comparatively. And why would they want to get on the map? Well, maybe, I mean, they don't, because they want to gather up infinite victory points. And I'm not sure that they want to fight. There's no real reason to fight a battle if I can just gather victory points all game long. Of course, the Union might slam into me and fight me on the operational map. We'll see. I just have this terrible feeling that the game is so poorly designed that there's no way you end up in a battle in Gettysburg. There's no reason for it that I can see.